So today we will be covering Azure Authentication and Authorization. So Microsoft Authentication Identity Platform, it has this major five components. OAuth 2.0. This is a common standard if like you are trying to integrate applications with third-party authentication and authorization applications. So all of them follow OAuth 2.0 protocols, where you give your URL and you ask for some access and claims kind of thing. So we'll look into also Microsoft Authentication Library, how we can use Microsoft Authentication Library to implement authentication and authorization. So the platform also has some endpoints to facilitate the access to the resources. And Azure, there's a portal to manage everything. And there are configuration APIs and PowerShells. So we have to understand some of the concept in Microsoft IAM system. In Microsoft Identity Access Management System, you have to register. They have given a platform or service called Microsoft Entra ID. So I think it's a replacement for Microsoft Azure uh, A2D B2C Active Directory. So they have given us some Microsoft Graph APIs also. Using Microsoft Graph APIs, we can uh, set up authentication authorization for a lot of resources on the server. So first thing I will be showing in the demo later, but we have to register an application with Microsoft IAM system. So we have option, either we can set up our application for single tenant or we can set up our application for multiple tenant. So regardless of that, one application object is created. And this application object is a global application object. There will be only one instance of this application object for your application which has been registered with Microsoft IAM system and Carta ID. So what this application object main features or functionalities, how the service can issue tokens in order to access the application, resources that application might need to the access, and what are the actions that application can take. So this is everything is happening at application object. This is, you can think of root level object. Second concept we have to understand is service principal objects. So these defines the access policy and permission for the user application in the Microsoft Entra ID. This enables core features such as authentication of the user application during sign in, and authorization during resources access. So this service principal object has three objects. This application is just a placeholder for the global application object. Then you have managed identity. This is again, managed identity is used to all for authentication for access. And legacy principal object is for old applications where there was no uh, you didn't set up these applications for IAM system for Microsoft Microsoft IAM system. So as Microsoft, Microsoft, whenever you have to set up permissions, they use OAuth 2.0. In OAuth 2.0, that every application is identified for a by URI. Like for example, Microsoft Graph, this is the URI. This is how you set up. I hope all of you have used some kind of identity management system. And once you set up your resource, then you uh, set up some permissions, like you want to say calendar read permission. So in the URI, this is additional parameters you give. So So in the Microsoft Word, like whenever you register your applications with Microsoft IAM system, so user have to give consent. One is static consent. Okay, there's a application. I have my application. Uh, I created my application. So there's a read permission, write permission, admin permission, create permission. In static user consent, you define all the permissions and then you give these permissions to the user. So this is not a ideal way. In this way, you have to give all the permissions to the user. There is a another way of giving incremental and dynamic user consent. In this way, you give minimum consent to the user. If he need more resources, then you ask him to accept the consent that he need to agree for he need to agree for more permissions. Admin consent, you define all everything the user would need. We have seen in the Azure when you were giving admin, pretty much everything is defined. He can create, destroy, create users, destroy users. So let's go into the demo first, then it will make more sense to us. Bhuvan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we have to create a resource group. We are creating our resource group here in Azure. So this is an example I am doing. So I'm going to create a new resource under this resource group, Microsoft Entra ID. This is Microsoft new IAM system kind of thing system, uh, Microsoft Entra ID. So it didn't give me Microsoft Entra ID. So I have to select B2C. So I will give some dummy organization name, some demo, today's date, and some random number. So I am creating here Entra ID service for IAM. So this is the Entra ID service. I'm looking for a place to register the service. I'm going back to resource group. I'm going back to my Entra ID. And this was a little bit I figured it out like, yeah, you have to click that open B2C TNet. Here you are going to add your application application to the Entra ID. Means we are writing an application which need authentication and authorization from Azure Entra ID. So now that's the part we are going to do. So we have created Entra ID. Now next is we need to register our application with Entra ID. Yeah, that's a button you need to click and you need to log in into that one. You have to enter your password for your portal once more. I entered the wrong password, so I'm entering the right password again. So here I see the app registration. Before I was searching for app registration option. So here is the app registration option. Either I can see all the application in the directory, or there's a plus button on the top, add new registration. So I'm just seeing, okay, so by default it does create uh, some application for that IAM system, Entra ID. I am not interested in this one. Let me forward. So here, okay, I'm I'm clicking new registration. So here I want accounts in the organization directory only for single tenant. So I'm selecting here my application. The name I'm going to give some mm, demo, some my today's date, some number, random number. So here I'm registering my application with Microsoft Entra ID system. Here redirect URL. So since I will be creating a console application and running on my desktop, so I'm going to the example in the Microsoft certification. So that's what in the example is saying. Type in HTTP / localhost so that it knows it need to redirect to my console application. So once you did it, two parts are very important in that: the client ID and tenant ID. So uh, I'm going to create a new console application, and this console application is already registered with the Enter ID. How it's registered it is by using client ID, tenant and ID. It's going to get the token. Okay, that I am registered with you. So here I'm copying the code program file. This is a code from the example. We need to Microsoft Identity Client package to our console application. So here I'm going towards new get package. Under browse, I'm going to find the package and install on my machine. Microsoft Identity Client. Okay. So here is like client ID and tenant ID. These are the numbers I need to copy from the application which I have registered with Microsoft Entra ID. So, so this is my application. Here is the client ID. I'm copying the client ID from that my client profile page. And next second thing I would need is tenant ID. So I'm going to copy the tenant ID also in the code. So here is the code to get the authentication authorization contest. I'm copying from the example. And this is the scope user read. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the token from that Microsoft Entra ID. So let me run the application. So this is my console application going to enter ID and saying, okay, this is my client ID, this is my tenant ID. As I'm running the application, you can see it is asking for me the consent that this my application is not published by Microsoft. Do I give my consent to access this to continue with this application? And here I got the token. So here I have given you the whole demo of Microsoft identity system. I created Entra ID. Then I registered this my console application and I got the client ID, tenant ID. Then I wrote this console application, and in this console application, I installed the Microsoft Identity package, and then I gave the client ID and the tenant ID, and I got the token from the Microsoft Entra ID. So the user who's accessing, he has to give the consent. So all that authentication authorization functionality is out of the box. We didn't have to do any custom development. If you guys have worked on some identity management system, you know, like you have to implement whole thing by yourself. Here we have to do we have to do anything.